In Los Angeles, where every relationship is a chessboard and every word is a move, the calm before the storm never lasts, especially not when Ridge Forrester is involved. After months of emotional whiplash, longing glances, and loaded silences, the Forrester family was once again on the verge of combustion. At the center of the chaos, Ridge's engagement to Taylor Hayes. But not everyone believed in that happily ever after, not even Ridge himself. It started with whispers. Katie Logan, never one to stand by idly while her sister walked into heartbreak, pulled Brooke aside and told her, point blank, it was time to tell Taylor the truth. Italy wasn't just a trip. It wasn't just business. Something happened, there's something real. The stolen moments, the vulnerability, the way Ridge looked at Brooke like the years hadn't passed at all. Katie saw it. Brooke felt it. And now Taylor deserved to know. But before Brooke could act, Thomas stepped in. Protective of his mother and determined to see her finally find peace with Ridge, Thomas confronted Brooke. His message was clear and cold. If you try to ruin this for my mother, I will not hold back. He accused Brooke of manipulating Ridge, of using emotional bait to pull him away again. He told her to stay away from the engagement party, to stay away from Taylor, and to let the past stay buried. But Brooke, shaken yet resolute, knew the truth had a way of clawing its way out, and she wasn't going to sit on the sidelines and watch Ridge marry someone else when his heart clearly wasn't in it. What Thomas didn't count on was Eric. The Forrester patriarch, always quietly observant, had picked up on Ridge's conflicted energy. Over a private drink at the Forrester mansion, Eric said the words Ridge didn't want to admit aloud. You can say what you want, but your woman has always been broke. Ridge didn't deny it. He just stared at the glass in his hand like it held the answer. But the clock was ticking. The engagement party was set. The invitations were out. Taylor was glowing with hope. And everyone knew the Forrester parties were never just parties, they were battlegrounds. The day arrived, bright and perfect on the surface. The Forrester estate was decked in soft pastels and cascading floral arrangements. Champagne flowed, photographers circled, and guests buzzed with anticipation. Ridge and Taylor stood at the center, their smiles convincing from a distance, but tension lurked under the polished surfaces. Then Brooke walked in. Wearing white, not by excitancy, entered like a storm cloaked in sunlight. The crowd hushed. Taylor's smile faltered. Ridge's breath caught. And Thomas's jaw clenched so tight it looked ready to snap. She congratulated the couple with calm, grace, and fire behind her eyes. No one knew what she would do next. Not even Katie, who watched from the side with a knot in her stomach. Then came the moment. The ring presentation. Ridge reached into his pocket. Taylor beamed. The music softened. The entire Forrester family leaned in. And then Brooke spoke. I'm sorry, Taylor, she said, her voice clear and wavering, slicing through the air like glass. But this isn't real. Not after Italy. Ridge told her what happened. A gasp rippled across the crowd. Ridge froze. Taylor looked from Brooke to Ridge, searching for a lie or a denial that didn't come. Thomas stepped forward, demanding Brooke leave. Eric stood. Let him speak, he said. Under the crushing weight of every gaze, Ridge finally broke the silence. She's right. I wasn't honest, he said, looking directly at Taylor. Italy changed everything. I thought I could bury it, but I can't. I still love Brooke. The room spun. Taylor's expression crumbled into betrayal. Thomas erupted, accusing Ridge of using his mother again, of leading her on, of humiliating her in front of everyone. Steffi rushed to her mother's side, glaring daggers at Brooke. But it was too late. The lie had shattered. And then the impossible happened. Brooke stepped forward, took Ridge's hand, and without a word, he took off the ring meant for Taylor. He turned, reached into his coat again and pulled out another ring. One Brooke didn't know about. One he had kept, waiting, hoping. Right there, at what was supposed to be his engagement to Taylor, Ridge proposed to Brooke. Gasps turned to chaos. The ring meant for Taylor now belonged to Brooke. Thomas lunged forward, shouting that this was a setup, a betrayal, a Logan conspiracy. Eric stepped between them, siding firmly with Ridge and Brooke. "Let them be," he said. Ridge knows where his heart belongs. In a matter of minutes, the party turned into a war zone. The family split instantly. On one side, Thomas, Steffi Taylor, and their loyalists furious, betrayed, and humiliated, vowing never to forgive. They claimed Brooke had manipulated Ridge, used his guilt, seduced him under the pretense of co-parenting. They refused to accept the engagement, called for a boycott of the wedding, and warned that Forrester Creations would never be the same. On the other, Brooke, Ridge, Eric, and a smattering of allies who believed in the couple's long, tumultuous love. Katie, Donna, and even Hope stood by Brooke's side, defending her right to be with Ridge if that's where his heart truly lay. Eric's endorsement sealed it. This company was built on passion and honesty. If Ridge is following his truth, then we support him. The battle lines were drawn. Boardroom meetings turned icy. Product launches became political. Staff were forced to pick sides. Whispers of coups circled the upper offices. Thomas began quietly consolidating power, whispering in Taylor's ear that it was time for a new direction with it Ridge. Without Brooke, a Forrester future with no Logans in sight. Steffi backed him. Taylor, wounded but proud, didn't say no. Meanwhile, Brooke and Ridge tried to rebuild publicly committed, but under siege. Ridge's guilt about Taylor lingered. Brooke tried to focus on their future, but the ghost of betrayal haunted every celebration. They couldn't take a step without pushback. Every photo op came with commentary. Every press release was dissected for signs of instability. And then came the corporate vote. Thomas, determined to oust Brooke and Ridge from their positions of influence, called for a restructuring of Forrester Creations' leadership. With Taylor's blessing, he proposed a new executive board that excluded both Ridge and Brooke. Eric, outraged, vetoed the motion. But the tension was clear. A civil war was brewing at Forrester Creations. Taylor, though heartbroken, refused to fade away. She returned to her practice, poured herself into her patients, and began appearing in the press as a champion for women's mental health. She turned her pain into power. But she didn't forget. And she didn't forgive. Especially not Brooke. The media dubbed it the Forrester Divide. Tabloids ran side-by-side spreads, Team Taylor versus Team Brooke. Fan pages exploded. Old scandals were dredged up. Viewership of FC's online brand soared, but the tension behind the scenes was unbearable. Ridge tried to keep the peace but failed at every turn. His love for Brooke was real. His guilt over Taylor was real. And his frustration with his children, particularly Thomas, was boiling over. The last scene of the arc closed on the Forrester boardroom. Everyone was present. The stakes were high. The company was teetering. Thomas stood at the head of the table, prepared to take the reins. Eric looked worn but defiant. Ridge and Brooke entered together, hand in hand. And before anyone could speak, Ridge said, "Enough." The room fell silent. This company is a family. But if we let this war consume us, we lose everything. You want to vote me out? Fine. But understand this. I won't let bitterness rewrite history. I love Brooke. I always have. And I won't apologize for following my heart. Thomas stared at him, unmoved. Then prepare to lose more than your title. Cut to black. The battle lines are drawn. Love, loyalty, and legacy are on the line. And the Forrester family may never be the same. This is the bold and the beautiful. And the war has just begun. At the heart of Los Angeles, where power plays hide behind designer suits and whispered scandals travel faster than fashion trends, Luna Dozawa was about to rewrite the rules of manipulation again. Under the cover of night, a discreet package arrived at the estate of Dr. Lee Finnegan. It wasn't unusual for medical deliveries to pass through her home after all. She was still a licensed physician on limited duty pending further reviews. But this delivery wasn't hers. It was for Luna. Inside, a pregnancy test kit, ordered under a pseudonym but unmistakably intended for one purpose. Luna's hands trembled slightly as she opened it, not from fear, but anticipation. If the test was positive, everything would change. The masked night she shared with Will Spencer carefully calculated, perfectly timed with her play. And now she was ready to cash it in. A child would be the ultimate tether, a permanent link to the Spencer fortune and name. One night, one test, one life rewritten. Lee noticed the package too late. By the time she confronted Luna, the damage was already done. The test had been used, the result positive, and with it came the impossible weight of consequence. Lee stared at the thin pink lines with a quiet horror. If she reported this, she would unravel her niece's life and expose a potential statutory quagmire involving Will. But if she stayed silent, she would be complicit in medical deceit and worse, enabling a scheme that reeked of coercion and control. Luna didn't blink. She pushed the test toward her aunt and said, "You'll protect me." "You always do." It wasn't a plea. It was a statement of fact. But the walls were already closing in. Sheila Carter, always sniffing out opportunity like a wolf in the wind, caught wind of the pregnancy through back channels. Maybe it was hospital gossip. Maybe it was a tampered delivery log, no one could say. But Sheila showed up at Lee's doorstep unannounced, uninvited, and unmistakably dangerous. Her eyes scanned the kitchen counter, caught sight of the used test, and her smile widened like a blade. "You know, I've always wanted to be a grandmother," she purred. "And if that little Spencer baby's in there, well, I guess it makes me family now." Lee's stomach turned. But Luna, ever the opportunist, saw the door open and didn't hesitate. She welcomed Sheila in, not out of trust, but leverage. If things turned dark, Sheila could be her shield or her weapon. But elsewhere, the storm was brewing. Electra, Will's on-again, off-again love interest, had just crossed a line of her own. After weeks of flirtation and soul-searching, she gave herself to Will. It was emotional, it was impulsive, and it was unfortunately timed. Days after his masked rendezvous with Luna, Will had now slept with Electra, unknowingly creating the perfect storm. And then Electra missed her period. Panic set in. A second test. A second line. Another pregnancy. Suddenly, Will Spencer, barely out of college, barely a man in his father's eyes, was staring down to potential paternity claims at once. And unlike the boardroom, there was no negotiation here, only biology. The Spencer estate, usually controlled, deliberate, and surgically guarded, erupted in chaos. Will Spencer didn't take the news well. 2 possible grandkids, 2 young women, and 1 son now at the center of a public relations nightmare. The legal teams mobilized. Press suppression protocols were activated. And in the middle of it all, Ridge Forrester's brand was directly tied to both Electra and Luna through FC modeling contracts demand answers. The solution, seemingly simple: DNA testing. 2 women, 2 amniocentesis samples, 1 lab, a full paternity cross-match. But nothing in this family is ever simple. The lab tests were conducted at Forrester Creations' private facility, discreet, secure, and used only for highly confidential cases. The samples were tagged. Electra's and Luna's fetal DNA was isolated. Will's blood was drawn. The techs followed protocol until someone broke in. Late at night, security was tripped. Cameras were wiped. Only one room was entered, the genetics lab. The drawer containing the test samples was opened. When the techs returned in the morning, the results were wrong. Electra's test showed Will as the father. Luna's test also showed Will as the father. Only one could be true. Or maybe neither. The Forrester family was paralyzed. Katie Logan demanded an investigation. Ridge called for internal audits. Thomas suspected sabotage, immediately accusing Luna of tampering. Brooke remained silent, eyes tracking every move Luna made. Eric leaned on old contacts to bring in third-party labs for independent verification. But the damage was done. Will, already unsteady, spiraled. 2 truths, 2 women. 2 futures. He confronted Luna, who maintained her innocence, swearing she hadn't touched the tests, but her eyes flickered when asked if Sheila had access. Will turned to Elektra, but her trust was fading. She couldn't understand why he wasn't fully committed if the test was in her favor. The ambiguity tore them apart. And then came the real twist. A whistleblower came forward, a low-level lab tech who had stayed late to finish paperwork. She hadn't seen the intruder's face, but she heard a voice. A woman's. Calm, cold, commanding. Sheila. The puzzle snapped together in an instant. Sheila had switched the samples. Not to help Luna, not to hurt Elektra, but to destabilize everything. Because in chaos, she thrives. In confusion, she gains control. But the switch had one fatal flaw. The original samples had been auto-archived to a cloud system before the tampering. Eric's tech team retrieved the metadata, and a digital forensic sweep confirmed the timeline discrepancy. Reanalysis of the untouched genetic data revealed the truth. Elektra was not pregnant with Will's child. Luna was. The revelation shattered the entire narrative. Elektra, humiliated, withdrew from FC's campaign and left the city. Will, stunned, now had only one child to claim, but it came with strings. Luna, Sheila, Lee. A mess he didn't create but now had to live with. Bill, infuriated, ordered Will to move into a private property under 24-hour security. He wanted no further scandal, no further noise, only control. But Will refused. He showed up at Luna's door not with flowers, not with apologies, but with a demand: full custody. He would raise the child. Luna could be involved, but not Sheila, not Lee. He would not allow their chaos to infect his child. Luna said no. Sheila, from the shadows, whispered that it was war. Lee, devastated by how far things had gone, finally broke. She confessed to Ridge that she had known about Luna's plan from the beginning, that the masked night wasn't just spontaneous, but orchestrated. She didn't approve, but she didn't stop it. And now she didn't know how to fix it. The Forresters were disgusted. Contracts were severed. Press leaks emerged. Public statements were issued to minimize brand damage. But internally, the family was fractured again. And Luna. She watched it all unfold from behind a flawless smile. She had the Spencer air. She had Sheila as a wild card. She had survived the test tampering, the paternity maze, and the smear campaigns. But she didn't have peace. Because now, Will was out for control. Bill was watching. The Forresters had turned. And Sheila. Well, Sheila had decided that if she couldn't be part of the family through Finn, she would do it through Luna's child. The game wasn't over. It had just leveled up. And in the world of the bold and the beautiful, the only thing more dangerous than a lie is a truth no one's ready to believe.